Wow, this is overwhelming. You know, it's great. I feel the love. It's a beautiful thing. Am I on mic? I'm all good, thank you. It's wonderful to be wired up first thing in the morning, isn't it? That's great. It's like I would need that. It's a pleasure and an honor, really is, to share some time with you this morning. And I know your schedules are busy, and I know that you do not take your time lightly, and I will be respectful of that as well. But as I look across the room today, and I see so many wonderful friends, and I see new friends, and I see business associates, and I see folks that I've had the chance to interact with in this community, it's such a great and warm feeling to be at home. And, you know, no matter where we are, it's the people around us that make home. And Alexandria certainly opened its arms to David and I back in 1998 and said, welcome home, welcome here, be a part of this community. And it's been such an honor and a privilege and a blessing. And I hope I can give just an ounce or two of that back this morning through sharing with all of you. You know, when Leanne and Gary first contacted me, I was like, you know, hey, I've been out of the mainstream for a while. I'm rusty on all this stuff, you know? Because trust me, when you go into retirement, there's a whole nother journey of learning, if any of you have tried it. How to wind down, you know, how to sleep in, and how to take it easy, and how to relax, and how to not have stress in your life. And that's a whole other task. If you haven't been there, you'll look forward to that one. And you kind of get rusty on some of the things that you knew every day. You know, my journey started back a long, long time ago, and I've been working since as far back as I can remember, which is probably why you've been hearing the rumbles that I'm back in the business working again. But I started working the summer before my senior year in high school. You know, my dad was a minister, so things were not overly plentiful in our household. And so, you know, if we wanted things and we wanted to have things, we had to go out and get those things. And I know many of you in here can identify with that. And so I started to work in a dental office in that summer, and I had the opportunity to really be exposed to things at a very early age that I felt incredibly grateful about, because the dentist that I worked for believed in taking his summers off, and he owned a lot of real estate and a lot of rental property. So in addition to learning how to be a dental assistant, I had the summer to actually manage his rental properties. So here I was, you know, a little young age of 17, 18 years old, and I'm taking on responsibility that obviously was a great learning experience in terms of dealing with people and all the different challenges that go with that particular venue. As time went on, and what I thought was going to be a summertime job turned into an 11-year career, and then I decided it was time to go get a real job. So I started putting in applications, and in the course of this time, I had gone to junior college and received my associate's degree in business, and I was interested in working for a large corporation, because, you know, back in the 70s, that's what we did. We wanted that job security to go work for the large company. And so I put my application in at Delta Airlines, and I put it in at IBM Corporation, and I got a call the very same day from both companies. So guess which one I chose? You know, it was in the 70s, I was young, I thought that would be a real glamorous job to work for the airlines. And opposed to what many people, I think, in the community still think, I was not a flight attendant. I was never a flight attendant. I was hired in reservation sales, which was really the little more mundane, repetitive job of taking those phone calls to deal with people. But one of the things that I had the chance to really, really grow with at Delta was their leadership management program. And I tell many people that was my college training, and that was the rest of my education, because it was really second to none, and I had the chance to attend great venues and great training with great people that prepared me for what I did not even know was about to happen in my life in the years to come. And one of the things that you probably are aware of at Delta Airlines is we were the only non-union airline, and with the exception of the pilots and flight attendants, because, you know, those are very special people, so they get a union. The rest of us chose not to be union. And one of the things that I learned at Delta Airlines in order to maintain that healthy environment by not being non-union was communication and the value of that. And I was often struck by the degree of money, time, interest, people, and leadership that was devoted to creating an environment for good communication. every 18 months, senior management from corporate in Atlanta would make their rounds to all of our reservation centers. And they would host meetings similar to this, maybe a little bit smaller groups actually. And it was truly the grassroots employees, the reservation sales agents who had the chance to connect with the president, the CEO, the president of our department at that given time, to share their concerns, what was working, what's not, what we need to be doing, what we've done well, what we're not going to do well, and obviously it gave them a chance to impart maybe any new visionary thinking that they had going on. And that experience for me, because my last position at Delta was a regional manager, where I had 6 call centers numbering over 6,000 people. So you guessed it, my job was to go and conduct those forums and actually be one of the listeners and contributors and be on the panel for these people. And I learned back then, just as I've learned with so many of you in the course of meeting you, is that one of the things that was critical for us is to realize that everybody in that room brought just a little tiny bit of difference with them. And that actually was a great thing. It's what made that group unique. It's what made the energy what it was. It's what made that particular reservations call center what it was. And so one of the things that I brought when I decided to go out on my own and do the McDonald's thing, I brought a lot of those principles with me in my business. And I valued that communication vehicle so much that I began to actually realize that it works in every business environment. It wasn't just at Delta. It's every business environment, that the people who walk through your doors, whether they're customers or whether they're employees, they bring just a little bit different. And then here today, I know that is the very same thing. And that's what makes you all so wonderful to me, is to figuring out what that difference really is. So I look forward to sharing that. In your packet today, and I hope you got one coming in. If you didn't, I think there may be some extras. If you didn't get a packet, raise your hand and Leanne will be happy to help you get one to you. But look in your packet today and look. This is an interactive situation. Ask questions at any time. I don't want to be real formal. You know, I'm a little rusty at this, so you guys embrace me, and I know that you will, and give a little support here. But what you get from this is what you're going to give into this today. There's a lot to be shared, but the learning curve actually begins when you engage yourself and start asking those questions and bringing some of these things home to your own environment. And I think that's what I would encourage all of you today to realize the importance of. The thing that Leanne told me that you guys wanted to get from this workshop today was, how do I set the tone for good communication, was one of your goals. How do I motivate my leadership team to focus on clear communication? And how do I create a commitment to clear communication? How do I encourage positive interaction between my employees? And how do I get my team to communicate with customers as I do? So that's a tall order this morning, but I hope we can fill just in a few of those blanks for you as we proceed and move forward. If you look in your packet to the High Impact Team Leader form, you'll find it there. I think it's like the second page, hopefully. Yeah, you'll see that. And the instructions are clear, but sometimes we overlook instructions. And one of the things that I want you to pay attention to is when you go from left to right, say in column 1, you see the words determined, enthusiastic, loyal, and conscientious. Put a 4 next to the word that you feel most accurately describes you. And I understand many of these words probably describe you, but there's got to be one of them that jumps off the page. And don't give this a great deal of thought, because you should know yourself by now, right, at this point. And just go with that gut reaction. And put a 4 next to the word that most aptly describes you. And then put a 3 next to the next word, and a 2 to the next, and a 1 to the one that least describes you. And again, that's not a bad thing to be a 1, okay? But what we're looking for here is an overall picture of really those behavioral things in your makeup that makes you unique to who you are. And this is a tool that I have used with myself personally. I've used it with every employee. I've used it with managers particularly, because the failure sometimes for us to realize the differences in how people think and react and conduct themselves can have a huge bearing on how they perform their job. And if we as business owners and managers fail to make that connectivity, sometimes we're going to get the wrong person in the wrong job. And if you've been an employer and had the wrong person in the wrong job and they thought they were great at it and they weren't, it's a pain. Am I right? Anybody in here had that experience? Yeah, let's amen on that one. Absolutely. As I used to say at Delta, we worked a whole lot harder at keeping people in a job than they worked at keeping their own job, right? So, and I know you're familiar with that if you've been in leadership very long. How many of you are business owners? Raise your hand in here today if you're business owners. Quite a few of you. That's great. How many of you are in management or supervisor or management role in the job that you do? Wow. Okay, that's great. Many of you. Wonderful. So feel free. Shout out those questions. Shout out those challenges that you had, because I promise you, I may not have all the answers in this room, but I see faces in this room that their experience can provide you many, many opportunities for learning today. So take about another 4 minutes or so and complete this form, and then we're going to talk about it a little bit and talk about some of the differences and why those differences are there. Well, it's my timekeeper here. Quiet group. Focused. 5 minutes. Yeah. If you'll total up those 4 columns, which should equal 100, if your math is working for you this morning, we're making progress. If you're done, maybe just a little raise of the hand so we don't. Okay. Noticing any surprises? Seeing anything that you may not have definitely realized about yourself? Anything that you kind of thought but you weren't sure? I'm sure that you've participated in an exercise like this before. But I found it a little bit surprising as I did it for myself. I mean, I knew I was, obnoxiously assertive. But I also knew that there were other very tender sides of myself. And I think that, sometimes we think those two things cannot be mixed, when in reality they can, very much in leaders, be mixed. Do we have any dominant people in the room? On the second page, you'll see the first column is identifying those with dominance characteristics. The second column are those that are influential. These are very direct, fast-paced people. None of them in this room. Anybody fall in those categories besides myself? Any of those? Wow, not as many as I would have thought. Wow, great, okay. And then we have that great category of people who are task-oriented, those perfectionists in life, right? And then we have the steady performer. that we all need, very relationship-oriented people. Any of those in the room today? Any of those? Great. Wonderful. Those are great. Good. Yes?
How do you know which one? I may be just
Your numbers, whatever you number the high score on, is the category. The first column is dominance, and you'll see on the second page that dominance is the top left category. And then to the right of that, you see influence. That's the second column, okay? And then conscientious, third column, and steady, fourth. No? Okay.
okay, thank you.
Not according to this. Okay, yeah. Okay. I'd like for somebody to read the dominance characteristics for us. Aggie, would you do that? Just read those. Read those on the second page. We're not saying that's you, okay? All right.
High ego, strong-willed, decisive, efficient, desire-trained, competitive.
Very good. Very good. How about influence? Anybody want to volunteer for that one for me?
Emotional, enthusiastic, optimistic, persuasive, animated, talkative, people-oriented, stimulating.
Fabulous. Okay. Task-oriented and the conscientious category. Go ahead.
Perfectionist, sensitive, accurate, persistent, serious, orderly, cautious, needs much input.
Wonderful. And steady?
Dependable, agreeable, supportive, accepts change slowly, contented, calm, routine, reserved.
Would it be of value to you to know these kind of behavioral traits about people that you hire and or work with? Can you see value in understanding that? It's a great little exercise. It's simple, but it's one that I promise you has been very useful to me over the years, particularly in hiring people in leadership roles. Because we can talk to someone for 30 minutes, or we can have interviews and have other people have interviews, but sometimes we don't learn the things that we really need to know about what makes that person click and how they're going to mesh with the rest of our team, which is a very, very critical thing. You know, I doubt that wars were won in our country because generals didn't understand the differences in their soldiers. And I think they had a way of figuring that out, and I'm sure some techniques probably similar to these were used. So why should we not do the very, very same? It's a great, great tool, and it's one that I think, again, can be of great, great value to you as you proceed in your business ventures. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit and talk with you just a little bit. Let me share a couple of examples with you when I worked for Delta Airlines of things that were surprises to me in terms of people. One of the tasks as a new little manager at Delta Airlines that I had was to monitor reservation sales calls. Yes, we were the big brother in the back room listening over the headset to the phone calls that were coming in. Now again, keep in mind at Delta that we were very structured, and we had taught these people everything they needed to know, what to say, what not to say, how to ask for the sale, how to seek information on those telephone calls. So we had very structured guidelines that we were looking for when we monitored these phone calls. But one of the elements that we wanted these people to understand is we wanted a smile in their voice. Have you ever heard that? A smile in your voice. I mean, we went to the drastic extremes. We would put mirrors up on their little computers so they could see themselves and actually engage them in their process as they were talking to these people on these headsets. And one of the conversations, I recall it so very, very vividly, and I was just green as I could be, and I brought in this young lady, and she and I happened to have the very same birth date, Florence Pugh. I will never forget Florence. And Florence was just the meekest, most humble, sweetest, kindest individual that you had ever met. But it was tough to get a smile out of Florence. And I recall coaching her one day on a phone call that I had listened to. And I said, Florence, you know, you are just about the kindest individual that I have ever met. But I said, you know, I just cannot feel or see a smile going on when you're talking to these customers. They just are not able to feel all that great kindness. And she said, Miss Glenda, She says, I'm smiling inside the whole time I'm talking to these people. So, sometimes folks are smiling on the inside. Some of us are a little more demonstrative than others. Another incident that I had that caught my attention early on, and for those of you that have been around me, you probably have seen this in me as well. I have a tendency, if I have a responsibility, I kind of overstate that responsibility. I take it real serious. And if I am responsible to communicate something to you, I might say it any number of times and become repetitive. And I had a little agent one time that I was talking to, and she looked at me and she goes, you just scared the hell out of me. Really? And her conversation was because, what you've asked me to do today, you've asked me 5 times to do that. So, it's great to be able to have people learn with you and learn from them. And I think it's a wonderful chemistry if you can establish that in your workplace and start having people feel the comfort zone to share with you those things that you're doing that may be making them perhaps a little less productive because they have a fear of something that they don't know about. So are you providing an environment for that kind of conversation? Has it ever occurred to you to ask an employee to evaluate you and your style and talk about that? Gives you a great door to start talking about theirs as well. Yes?
Glenda, have you ever had your managers do this on you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have, and it's very effective. And there were some surprises for me, absolutely. Just like those 2 little scenarios I shared with you there. That, we think that, we get to a certain point and we get old enough, we should know better. And we should have many of these things about ourselves figured out. But when we're under pressure, and when we have responsibilities that maybe differ, and this is what I used to communicate a great deal with employees at Delta Airlines, as people would come up in the ranks and get promoted, their job duties changed. And when they reported to work, people would say, well, she's changed. You've heard that. She's not the same person, or he's not the same individual anymore. Well, not really. The same Eloise was walking through the door, but maybe her responsibilities had changed dramatically. And therefore, how she was reacting to those changes in responsibility was causing people to think that she had changed. So it's a great exercise. I think it's good. Thank you for mentioning that. It's wonderful. Good. Any other comments or questions? Anybody have any other thoughts about this and how you could use it? Yeah.
In your business experience, do you ever use this as a model to determine the mix of your employees, especially those in management?
In management particularly, yes. Yes. And I made changes. I made big changes within my management ranks based on some of the characteristics and the traits of these people. And guess what? They were happier, and so was I. Because you really need, if you're running a shift at McDonald's and you've got 7 things going on at one time, the steady little guy is just not going to be who you need, He might have a capacity for you somewhere, he probably does, but it's not going to be on that front line trying to handle 7 things. And I'm sure you gentlemen in the military can identify with this greatly. So yes, absolutely. It's a wonderful thing to use. And it's, it's not intimidating. I mean, it's just something, and people kind of enjoy learning a little bit more about themselves as well. So hopefully it'll be a tool that you will find useful. Absolutely. Any other questions or comment? Let's move now and talk a little bit about teams. I've always worked in an environment where teams were necessary. And I know, and as I look across the room, the business complexities that are here today, some have teams and some of you work alone, and some of you have small teams and some probably have large teams. But I'd like for us to talk a little bit about teams. We're told that in any given team, typical team, we have 30% superstars, we have 50% middle stars, and the 20% what? Falling stars, right? And obviously, as a business owner and a manager in your workplace, you're wanting to move those falling stars to another section, either the middle or to the superstar category. And how are we doing that? How are we able to influence those people to really want to move from one category to another? We're very, very guilty as business owners and managers to always go to who to get the work done? The superstar, right. Because why? They're going to get it done. They're going to require minimal direction, right? They're going to require minimal supervision, and they're going to get it done. What are we doing in the course of that action? Wearing them out, burning them out. And then we wonder why they want to leave, right? It is a number one opportunity to fail in your job if you do not develop more superstars. And the only way to do it is to delve in a little closer again to your team and to learn within your team what is it that's happening, what's making each one of them work as a team. Because here we got all these individuals going on, and now we're going to melt this together. It's like a recipe, right? Coming together. And how are we going to make sure that the steady contributors can operate with the dominant people? And how are those things going to happen? And it takes a lot of work to blend a team into an effective leadership role, right? How many of you have teams you're responsible for? Okay. Shout out a little bit the numbers of people that you have on your teams. How about you, Brent? How many you have? 5? Great. Anybody else? Anybody got larger? 2? Great. 9? Good. Others? Okay. Good. 5 seems to be a good number. How about you, Dr. Howard? You've got to have a large team. Anybody in the back? No, yeah? Okay. Good. It's a lot. Well, I appreciate, again, your willingness to listen. Look in your exercise. There's another exercise called How is Our Team Working Together? This one may be a little more difficult to bring about, and Leanne, I'm going to ask your help a little bit. If you are here with people that you work with as a team, this is a great thing to kind of huddle up and do together. If you're not, maybe huddle up with your neighbor and learn how it works so that when you get home you can do it with your team. What's helpful here is to take the time, and maybe a good way to do this, if I can get 14 volunteers to stand up and read the opportunity section, and then 14 of you that will be reading the strength section. So if we could just randomly get 14 for the opportunity, would y'all stand up first? Thank you. Thank you. Always takes a leader, and I love it. All right, that's good. Do we have, Leanne, do we have them yet? You count them?
We've got 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think we've got a retake.
Okay, all right, okay. Now what we're going to do, since these people have been so gracious, the person sitting to their left, okay, to their left is going to read the strength, and you'll stay seated, all right? Because we know you're very shy little people, and you don't want to be up and be embarrassed, okay, all right? But that's how it's going to work. Yeah, I could see my shy person sitting here in front of me this morning. Okay. So we're going to start by reading these. As an individual, what I want you to do is read these things and obviously determine which number most closely relates to your team. This is a team exercise, okay? This is a team. So when you get home, you're going to have to get your team together and you agree upon which number your team is at. Does that make sense? You can do it individually, but then if you've got 5 people on your team, everybody's going to need to mutually agree where the team is in relationship to this particular effort that's going on. Are we clear in what we're doing? Everybody know who's who? If you're a strength person, raise your hand so we know. Okay, very good, very good. We're listening. They're awake. I love it. It's a beautiful thing. All right. We'll just start, Lisa, with you, and you'll read the first opportunity.
Direction and purpose. No team members seem to understand our purpose and goals. There's no one to my left, so I'm going to grab the person on the right.
That's good. We'll take it. Thank you. Good initiative. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
And the strength. All team members seem to understand our purpose and goals.
Okay, so you get the idea of what we're trying to do here. Again, your team will decide where you fall. Obviously, you want to be as close to the strength if you are there. If you're not, you don't want to deceive yourself. This is not trying to get a great score. This is trying to really understand the truth of where the team is, you know? Living in the truth mode, right? It's a great thing. Go ahead, Helen.
Knowing each other. All team members do not know, 1, names of other members, 2, any other information about members.
Okay, great.
I also don't have anybody.
Ted will do that for you. Thank you, Ted. He does, and never has followed instructions. Go ahead, Ted.
All team members know names of other members, experience level of others, what others are good at doing.
All right. That's a pretty tall order right there, right? Pretty tall order. Stacy?
Planning. Our team never takes time to plan before we start a new task.
Wow.
Our team always takes time to plan before we start a new task.
Are any of these things resonating with some of you who have people you're responsible with? Are any of these things that maybe you have opportunities for improvement in? Your workforce would flow just a little bit better if we had this going on for us? Okay. Angela?
Roles and responsibilities. No one on our team has specific roles or responsibilities.
Strength. Everyone on our team has specific roles and responsibilities.
Wonderful. Melinda?
Participation. Very few people on our team actively participate.
Strength. Everyone on our team actively participates and seems committed.
Awesome. Behind you?
Our team is not in agreement with the way we make decisions, and only a few people are comfortable with the decisions we make.
Wow.
Strength. Everyone is in agreement and is comfortable with the decisions we make.
This is a great category right here. One of the greatest opportunities to engage employees in your vision is to engage them in huge decision-making processes. Sometimes we think as owners and managers we have to come with all the answers, and we need to lay it out and have it all figured out. And guess what? How much ownership thinking you think is going on when we do that? We've removed them from the process. And I can see many of you have figured this out, and this is old news to you. But I promise you, if you exercise that and you adhere to that, and you know what? It's not easy, is it? It's much easier just to go be the boss and just figure it out and go out and tell them and dictate. It's much easier. It takes a lot less time. You don't have to sell anybody on anything. You don't have to necessarily encourage them to, there's no persuasion going on. You're the boss. I told them. But unfortunately, the vision never gets captured the same in that style of leadership. Yes, sir.
Opportunity. Very few people follow our established operating methods.
Strength. Everyone follows our established operating methods.
Okay. Kathy?
Competition. People on our team are competing for control, and there is a feeling of needing to choose sides.
Wow. I know that never happens in your shops, right? Never. 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 In none of our shops did that ever happen. Great.
Strengths. People on our team do not compete for control, and the team is
It's kumbaya where you come from, huh? Okay. Good. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Giving constructive feedback. Team members do not give constructive feedback to other members.
Okay.
Strength. Team members give constructive feedback to other members when necessary.
Okay.
Respect. When a member of this team is frustrated, it seems as if some members do not respect other members.
Wow. Wow. Respectful workplace is something that, as a business owner, particularly in my McDonald world, that became one of the topics we talked about every day. because the need for it has been heightened in the society that we live in, the litigious environment that we live in. And what people, and many of us at my age grew up hearing in the workplace at Delta Airlines, would have never cut the mustard today, right? Lawsuits would be abounding in those environments. And so if you're not talking about that with your teams and the value of that and the need for that, you're setting yourself up for a failure opportunity there. Great. Okay.
Working together, people on our team work on as individuals, but do not collaborate to complete tasks.
Okay. Do we have an opposite going for you there?
People on our team work hard together so we collaborate to complete tasks.
Great. Okay.
Celebrate achievements. Our team doesn't celebrate our achievements.
Wow.
Strength of our team celebrates our achievements.
This is a huge miss. No matter how big or how small you are, I can tell you, celebrating the tiniest and celebrating the greatest is a chance to secure a loyalty from employees like no other way in the world. And it doesn't have to be a big old giant thing. Good public recognition, a great written thank you note, a good pat on the back.
A trip to Little Cakes.
A trip to Little Cakes. Okay, those are great. What other examples? Many of you must have some as well. Yes. I love it. I love that. Stand up and take an applause. A weekly wow. Wow. That's fabulous. That's great. That's fantastic. Somebody over here? Yes. Michelle?
Doug attended last night, my husband, and he was saying that you had suggested handwriting a note of something that someone did. So I was sitting there and I said, well, 3 years ago for the holidays, I hand wrote Christmas cards with a thing. It took 62 employees. But guess what? I only did it once 3 years ago.
Right.
So you do forget.
You do.
Which is why I'm attending this morning. Thank you for having me. You think you're doing great. So you check that off the box. I wrote a handwritten note.
Mm-hmm.
But what about all the new employees we've hired
That come
the last
in,
3 years?
absolutely. That's like giving an orientation. We did it, back when, but are we keeping that wonderful informative cycle going on?
And you send it to their home.
Yes, yes.
So that it engages.
And it's
family
very,
as
very
well.
important to them. And the fact that they get mail from the boss and then they open it up and it's a handwritten note, I cannot tell you the mileage that David and I got out of that. And it became just a joy. We got a blessing every time they got their mail. It was a great thing because it was so meaningful. Angela, yes.
At Red River Bank, we do the WOW as well within our employees,
Mhm.
but I went to a dealership to get my car worked on, and the girl that waited on me gave me exceptional service and went above and beyond
Yeah.
that I'd never been taken care of before. And I went back to my office and I thought, she needs to know what an impact she had on me today. So I got one of our Red River Bank WOW cards, and I wrote her a note, and I delivered it to her, and let her know that I would make sure and tell her upper management. And she was just taken
Floored.
aback.
Absolutely. Guess what kind of service you'll get next time you go in there? Right? Am I right? And the person behind you, wonder what kind of service they got after she received that. Yeah? That's great. Those are wonderful examples. Anybody else?
We do a monthly, well, we do several things, but we do have those cards for our patients that come in, Alexandria, and they can fill out it's called an eye catcher card. So any employee that's caught their eye, they've done something exceptionally well, or they've gone above and beyond, they can fill that out. We email that to all of the staff, and we post it in our break room. We also do a staff meeting every month, and we vote on an employee of the month.
Fabulous.
Managers vote on that, and we do an I'll take care of it, kind of a customer service team building report.
Fabulous.
And, the staff prizes, gift cards, parking spot right by the back door.
Awesome.
All those types of things. So it does make a difference.
It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference. Something that some years ago at McDonald's, we were struggling with the friendly factor on many of our surveys. And my goal was to get everyone that connected with a customer to use the word "my pleasure" at the end of taking the order. And I mean, we went all out. I was doing an awful lot of sermonettes and a lot of preaching, trying to get that message out, that my pleasure. And I actually stole it from the Ritz-Carlton because, you know, that's their trademark. And I was always impressed when I would go there at the level of service and the genuineness of the people. And I learned why. Their orientations underscore that. They reward that greatly. So if I would get a compliment from some of you, if I was out shopping or if I was out in a meeting like this and you came up and you commented to me about a particular employee that used the My Pleasure, they got a $25 bonus and a written note from me for doing that. And I can tell you it was one of the most effective little tricks, you know, and $25, really? You know? How many people, how many customers did I reinforce? Yes, Melinda?
I called you one day.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Absolutely.
I mean, how many times did you drop overnight?
Yeah. And I will tell you, you know what? Some of them they caught on pretty quick. You know, it was a beautiful thing. They caught on. Yes, sir.
To contrast that, in our current culture, very often whenever I'm the patron and I thank the person who I'm paying money to, their response is often no problem.
Right.
I just want to go.
Is that not the greatest put off in the world? Right. And my words to the employees used to be, what would make you think that they're a problem to begin with? You know? Who's paying your paycheck? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I don't own a business, but I worked at Office Depot for 2 years in Lafayette, and one of the biggest things that I could do was they call it Bravo cards. So the Bravo cards kind of look like a competition to with us because it's kind of interacting with other employees. And at the end of the month, they would draw and bring out, and you would get $50 added to your paycheck.
Awesome.
But our biggest time was back to school, and people don't realize Office Depot. And the biggest thing was we had a problem with surveys. We weren't getting enough surveys for our, like, the office where I work at. So the person who got their name mentioned the most in surveys got a $100 Visa gift card. So
Wow.
that month we made over 30 surveys.
Wow.
So that,
Wow.
You know,
Very effective for you. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Awesome. Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
One of the greatest impacts that I office, we have a small office, and we have a large hat that we wear, is when you receive your paycheck, you have a personal note on the outside of the envelope.
Wow.
If you were out ill, you had something saying that you were missed. That is just wonderful. And when by chance they make a mistake and don't get busy and don't put something on there other than just thank you, because it's always something besides just thank you.
Give us some examples of what you put on there.
Oh, words of encouragement. If they know that you have it, if my director is sitting here right now.
Fabulous.
She knows that I was going through a bad week this week. Family and person.
Again, she knows her employees.
Encouragement.
Awesome.
If you were out sick, I missed you.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
I'd love to have some duties.
I think some of you have had some McDonald's certificates in your paycheck stuffers. I think so. That's awesome. I love that idea. That's great. Did everybody hear that? That's awesome. That's great. You know, and people grow to expect and look forward to that little nugget of encouragement and those great incentives and those great rewards. Fosters a great working relationship. Well, I can see that celebrating achievements and rewarding your people is not something that's foreign to any of you in this room, so I'm pleased to hear that. Okay, where were we? I got myself off track. Anybody remember? Go ahead.
some members of our team do not seem satisfied with our progress.
Okay.
All members of our team are satisfied with the progress.
Again, are we working together as a team to understand the dynamic of that team to make things happen? Are we creating an opportunity for action? Because after all, what are teams put together for? right? Why do we need teams? We need things happening differently. We need action taking place. Okay?
Pride. I do not feel attached to my team members, and I don't feel especially proud of being a part of this.
Okay?
Strength. I feel attached to my team members, and I am proud to be a part of this team.
Pride is everything, right? Everything. The best compliment that any employer can have is when people shout out loud that they're so proud of who they work for and the company that they work for. That is the greatest compliment that you can have. Well, since we have determined that one of the reasons for good teams is because we need action taking place, right? And we need people in our workforce that know how and understand the value of action. I'm going to talk with you a little bit. You know, Abraham Lincoln said that things may come to those that wait, but only the things that are left behind by people taking action. Right? Right? Absolutely. And none of us want to be left behind. I have a couple of great $100 bills here, okay? Benjamin looks good this morning, okay? He looks really, really good. He's all nice and crisp, and he's not smiling. He's got that little puckered look. We don't know what happened to Benjamin that day when his picture was taken. Anybody going on vacation this summer? Anybody have extra guests coming to your house this summer that maybe is costing you a few extra dollars? Anybody out there that could use a little extra? Anybody? Can I hear anybody that could use any extra? Anybody have a need out there that could use that? Anybody in this room that could have a need? Come on down. Come on down. Absolutely. Who in the room took action, right?
Thank you, Ms. Scott.
You bet. All right, my friends. When we talk about action, you got to get your butt up, right? All right? And you got to move. You got to do something else. Why did not all of you that raised your hand and the room was full of hands raised come forward?
Was waiting on you to give the next instruction.
A good answer. But guess what? Do you always get the next instruction? And what do you do about it? You know? Sometimes we're reminded that our actions to this particular exercise is how we react to many things in our life, and it's why perhaps we are where we are. Yes, ma'am. You got another hand raised back there.
You don't always want the same thing or motivated by the same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. The need for those dollars didn't prevail in her arena, right? Absolutely, I agree. That's great.
Many of us are uncomfortable with risk for us to come forward and do what that's going to do.
It is the number one barrier to sometimes breaking through into another level of development for yourself and your company. We don't want to fail. And my challenge and my question to you is, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? Where would you go and what would you do? I can promise you, when David Stock and I came to Alexandria in '98, we had no idea where this journey would take us because the risk was huge. The debt service was ungodly, right? So it was motivation to work hard every day. And we were blessed to be able to grow this business, but 51% market share. We handled 2.6 million customers every year that we were here and exceeded $14 and $15 million in sales annually. And that was not because we stayed seated, right?
So what did corporate think of y'all?
A lot. You know, it's a beautiful thing to go into something that you know nothing about because you are forced to listen to the training and the development that a company has worked over 50 years to develop. And David and I used to say, McDonald's really can be foolproof and bulletproof. You just have to follow the steps that McDonald's teaches you. I mean, they have a training vehicle for mopping, okay? And everything that's in the store, every procedure, every operation is very finite and very detailed. Ray Kroc came from, a military background, so I don't have to tell you. We have SOCs just like you gentlemen have, absolutely. I'm sure he stole that model. But McDonald's was very good to us, and we were often showered with great awards. And if you ever have a chance to go by my office on Peterman Drive, I'll show you a few hundred of them. And we were very, very blessed. And not touting myself, but it was kind of interesting to us to see how validated the systems were when we actually used them. And of course, we were using them because we didn't know any better. We didn't know the wrong way. But people that maybe had been around the system a long time and had grown up in the system had lost faith in the system and decided they had a better way. And sometimes those folks were not nearly as successful. Yeah. Brent?
If you were to weigh systems versus people, which would be more important, or they? In our arena, because we did not know the operations of McDonald's, the systems were critical. It's one of the reasons that McDonald's, I think, overall has a successful reputation. You don't see many of them that fail or many of them that close because their systems work. And Delta had great systems. You know, the industry itself at Delta has gone through radical change and certainly caused me to take a look at doing something else because I could see that the industry, with all of the regulations that were coming, the fun was leaving soon. And, it was going to be a much more litigious environment and one that I wasn't enjoying myself anymore, not having much fun. But people are the ingredients that will always, always take your business to the next level. That will never, ever go away unless you happen to be in a business that requires no people, which there aren't many of. I'm currently involved in a business venture with David and Carl at Christmas with the On Point Talk TV, and one of my criteria was how many employees are we going to ultimately have, and because that truly is a component that we know adds stress, it adds a responsibility that's very different over anything else, and I've kind of served my time in that arena. Michelle? Yes?
Welcome to the TV business.
Thank you.
We are very happy to have you in our
Thank
business.
you. I appreciate that.
So you've done this very exercise before with employees.
The team exercise? Oh, absolutely.
With the Benjamins.
Yes, absolutely. So
I just learned something about, because I'm just so embarrassed I didn't get up and go get that money, because I really could use $200 right now. So you taught something, so how do you, now what do you do after, I'm going to do it next week. Don't anybody tell anybody that works at Channel 5.
Don't let the button.
How do you counsel how do you take that further? How do you make your point further?
I think as I've tried to do here, and the young lady pointed out, she's not motivated by the money. The need for the money didn't exist. So there's other things you can do, the free night on the town, a family vacation, who knows, right? But most of you in this room had your little paws going up, okay? You did, all right? My point was that so often we sit there and we don't want to take the risk to perhaps, maybe you didn't think I really was going to give it away. Was that somebody's thought?
Yes.
It was just a prop, right? But my point to my employees is this. If there is something that you want and that you need, and the opportunity presents itself, do not be afraid to step out and let it be known and take the action that you know it would take to get it. And people are not stupid. People understand the blood and sweat equity that's required. I shared with the ownership group last night over the course of time at McDonald's, getting my careers mixed up here, the calls that I would get for people that wanted to be owner-operators. And I'd say, sure, come on in, let's talk about this. And we would have a great conversation, and I would say, great, I'm going to schedule you. I'm going to put you on the schedule for 3 days so you can get a real up-close and look at what we're all about and what we do. I never had a single person come back and become an owner-operator, okay? Because it's hard work. It's tough work. It's challenging work. It's physically hard, emotionally hard. It's stressful. And people only saw David and I in our ownership role and not necessarily in the work role that it took to make all of that come about. So, does that answer your question?
Yeah,
a little
it
bit?
does.
That's great. Good. All right. We're going to take a little break.